My wife kept calling him just the neighbor, but the more he showed up, the quieter she got at home. Then one morning she left early without a goodbye, and my kids asked me why Mom looked mad at the house. Raleigh, North Carolina, is the kind of place where people wave in cul-de-sacs and pretend fences are just decorative. When we moved into our little tan rental near a row of crepe myrtles, I told myself we were finally doing it right. Steady jobs, school routines, dinner at the table, weekends that didn't feel like survival. I'm not a dramatic guy. I supervise a warehouse shift on the east side, the type of job where your hands smell like cardboard and diesel no matter how many times you wash them. I come home tired, not suspicious. I came home ready to be a dad. My wife, Paige, used to meet me halfway. She'd talk about small things like what the kids said at school, what we needed from the store, which bill was due. Then, slowly, her words got shorter. Her face stayed pleasant, but it was the kind of pleasant you wear when you're trying not to show a bruise you can't explain. Our daughter, Lily, started watching Paige's mouth when Paige spoke, like she was reading danger in the shape of a smile. Our son, Max, started hovering near me more, like he needed to make sure I was still real. That was when Trevor became helpful. Trevor lived next door, late 30s maybe, always in clean work boots, always with some reason to be outside at the exact moment we pulled in. The first time he introduced himself, he held a small toolbox like it was a prop. "Hey, man," he said, too friendly, leaning on our mailbox like he'd paid for it. "If you ever need anything, lawn stuff, ladder, whatever, just knock." Paige smiled like she'd known him for years. Not a big smile, just a quick, warm one that made something inside me twitch in a way I couldn't name yet. After that, he appeared in our life like a recurring background character. He offered to move a heavy box. He noticed our porch light flickering and said he could fix it. He told Paige about the HOA rules even though we weren't even owners. He brought over a tray of cookies once and Paige laughed. Actually laughed in a way I hadn't heard in months. I told myself I was being stupid. I told myself that's what neighbors do. I wanted to be grateful. I wanted to be normal. Then the first small rule showed up. Paige started asking where I was going when I left a room. "Just tell me," she'd say, like it was about safety. If I stepped outside to take a call, she'd follow a minute later and open the back door, standing there in the frame like she owned the air. When I asked what was wrong, she'd blink slowly and say, "Nothing. I just like knowing." But it didn't feel like liking. It felt like checking. One Wednesday, I got home early because a shipment got delayed and my manager sent half of us home. The house was louder than it should have been for that hour. Voices, laughter, a chair scraping. I walked in and froze. Trevor was in our kitchen. Paige stood on the right side of the island in a soft gray hoodie, phone in her hand, smiling. Lily and Max were at the table with homework spread out. Trevor leaned against the counter like he belonged there, holding a screwdriver like it was a cigarette. His eyes met mine and didn't move first. That's the kind of moment that stays burned into you as a perfect still image. Me on the left with my lunch bag and keys still in my hand, Paige on the right smiling too calmly, Trevor in the center with a tool in his palm, and my kids watching my face like they were waiting for a storm. On the counter sat a crumpled receipt, a glowing phone face down, and a knocked-over mug that had dribbled coffee in a thin brown line toward the edge. "Oh," Paige said, like she hadn't heard the front door. "You're home?" Trevor lifted the screwdriver a little. "Hey, man, your disposal was grinding. I told Paige I could take a look." I stared at the sink. It looked fine. I stared at the mug. It wasn't ours. Paige's smile stayed. "He's just helping," she said. I didn't say what I wanted to say. I swallowed it down because my daughter's eyes were wide and my son's pencil had stopped moving. "Thanks," I said. My voice came out flatter than I meant. "We're good, though." Trevor's mouth twitched like he found that funny. "No problem," he said, and he didn't move. He didn't pack up. He didn't step back. Paige didn't ask him to. That night, after the kids were in bed, I tried to talk. "Why was he here?" I asked softly in our bedroom, keeping my voice low like volume itself could break something. Paige folded laundry with sharp, quick movements. "Because the sink was acting up." It didn't look like it was acting up. She didn't look at me. "Ethan, not everything is a fight." "I'm not making it a fight," I said. I don't want him in our house when I'm not here." She turned then, and her expression changed. Still calm, but colder around the eyes. "So I need permission?" That word. Permission. Like I'd asked to control her, not our space. "I'm asking for respect," I said. "For boundaries." Paige laughed once, short and dry. "Boundaries," she repeated, like it was a new language she didn't believe in. "Okay." She walked past me, picked up her phone from the dresser, and I saw the lock screen light up with a notification preview that vanished the moment her thumb touched it, like it had never existed. The next morning, my phone showed I'd missed 2 calls from Paige while I was on the floor at work. That wasn't weird. What was weird was the text she sent after. Paige. "Don't come straight home. Take the kids for dinner. I need quiet." I stared at it in the fluorescent warehouse break room. The smell of burnt coffee and pallet wood thick in the air. I reread it 3 times. Paige didn't ask for quiet. She demanded it like a warning. I called her back. It went to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. When I texted, she answered immediately. Me. "What's going on? Are you okay?" Paige. "I'm fine. Just do what I said." Do what I said. On the drive to pick up Lily and Max, I felt that creeping, silent horror feeling. Like you're walking into your own life, but the floor plan has changed. Like doors are moving when you're not looking. At the school pickup line, Lily climbed into the back seat and buckled herself without a word. Max slammed his door harder than usual. I checked the mirror and saw Lily's fingers twisting the strap of her backpack over and over. "Hey," I said gently. "What's up?" Lily's eyes flicked to mine in the mirror, then away. "Mom said we have to be good," she whispered. "Like, extra good." Max muttered, "She got mad at the noise." "The noise?" I asked. Lily pressed her fingertips to her ears like she was remembering a sound she didn't want. "She said the house is too loud." The house was too loud, so I should take the kids away so she could have quiet. I drove us to a fast casual place near the shopping center, the kind with bright menus and families trying to pretend everything is fine. The kids barely ate. Lily kept watching the door. Max kept asking when we could go home. When we finally pulled into our driveway, the porch light was on even though it wasn't dark yet. Our front curtains were closed. I killed the engine and just sat there for a second, listening. I heard laughter. Not the kids' laughter. Not Paige's soft laugh. A man's laugh, low and confident, coming from inside my house. I looked down at my keyring in my palm. My thumb was sweating against the metal. Lily's voice came small behind me. "Dad?" she asked. "Can we be quiet now?" I didn't answer right away, because the front door wasn't just closed. It looked different, like the knob had been replaced, like the lock didn't match the one we'd had yesterday. And as I stared at it, my phone buzzed with a new message from Paige. Just one line, no emoji, no softness. Paige. Don't come in yet. I walked up to the porch with Lily and Max behind me, and I tried to make my voice sound normal. Stay close, I said, like we were worried about tripping on a step, not about what was waiting on the other side of our door. My key slid in, but it didn't turn. Not even a little. The metal felt wrong in my fingers, like the teeth didn't belong to this lock anymore. I tried again, slower, then once more with my shoulder angled in, like pressure could convince it. Nothing. Max leaned in, squinting at the knob. Did Mom change it? Probably just stuck, I lied, because the alternative was telling my kids that our house might not be ours right now. Behind the curtain, a shadow moved. Then another. Someone was definitely inside. I knocked, gently at first. Paige, I called. It's me. The kids are here. No answer. I knocked harder. The laugh I'd heard earlier stopped mid-air like someone had hit mute. That silence was worse than noise. It was the kind of silence that happens when people are deciding what story to tell you. My phone buzzed again. Paige. Don't make a scene. My stomach tightened. I stared at the words until they blurred, because she just confirmed something without saying it. She knew exactly how this would look from the outside. Man on the porch, locked out, kids watching, neighbors peeking through blinds. I typed back with my thumb shaking. Me. The lock won't open. Are you okay? Who's in there? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. Lily tugged my sleeve. Her voice came out small, like it didn't want to be heard by the walls. Dad, can we go to the car? Yeah, I said. Yeah, sweetheart. We walked back down the path. I didn't look left or right because I could feel eyes on us anyway. I buckled the kids in. I kept my hand steady on their seatbelts like that was the only thing in the world that mattered. Then I sat in the driver's seat and waited, staring at our front door. 2 minutes passed. 3. The porch light flickered even though it was broad daylight. Then the door opened. Paige stepped out first, on the right side of the frame, hair pulled back, face set in that calm expression she'd learned somewhere, calm enough to seem reasonable, hard enough to cut. Behind her, Trevor appeared, one step inside the doorway like he had a claim to the threshold. He was holding a paper cup of coffee, casual as a Saturday morning. And on the porch railing, sitting like a warning, was my spare key, the one we kept hidden in a magnet box. Not hidden anymore, displayed. It was a perfect frozen moment. Paige on the right with her arms folded, Trevor in the middle with coffee in hand, me on the left in the driver's seat gripping the steering wheel, and my kids in the back seat staring through glass. The props were loud. My key ring in my hand, Lily's backpack on her lap, Max's half-eaten fries on the floor mat, and that spare key on the rail like a trophy. Paige walked down the steps slowly, like she was approaching a skittish animal. Trevor stayed near the door. He didn't come down. He just watched. I rolled my window down halfway. "What's going on?" I asked. "Why can't I get in?" Paige exhaled like I was exhausting her. "Because I needed space." "You changed the locks," I said, keeping my voice low, "with the kids in the car." "I did what I had to," she said. "You've been—" She paused, just long enough to choose the right word. "Intense." Max leaned forward between the seats. "Mom, are we in trouble?" Paige's face softened for half a second. Then it snapped back into place. "No, baby, you're fine." She looked at me again. "But your dad needs to calm down." The way she said it felt like she was reading it off a card. I glanced at Trevor. He took a slow sip of coffee, eyes steady, like he was watching a show that he already knew the ending to. "Why is he here?" I asked. Paige didn't even turn her head. "Because I didn't want to be alone." The sentence landed in me like a stone. Not because it was true, but because it was useful. Those words could become anything in someone else's mouth. "I'm not going to argue on the street," I said. "Open the door. Let the kids use the bathroom. Let me get their stuff." Paige shook her head. "No." My throat went tight. "Paige." Her eyes flashed. "Do not raise your voice." "I'm not raising my voice," I said, and I was proud of how steady it came out. "I'm asking to come inside my own house." "It's not your house," she said, too fast, like the truth slipped out before she could stop it. Then she corrected herself. "It's ours, and right now, I'm saying no." Max's breathing got louder. Lily looked down and pressed her fingers to her ears like she was trying to make the world smaller. "Mom," Lily whispered, barely audible through the cracked window. "Can we just be quiet?" Paige's jaw clenched. She looked away from Lily, like looking at her would make her lose control of the script. Trevor finally spoke, calm and soft. "Man, just take them somewhere for the night. Let things cool off." The audacity of him saying it, like he was family, like he had authority, made my vision narrow. "Don't talk to me like you know what's best for my kids," I said, still quiet but sharp. Paige's head snapped toward him, then back to me. "See?" she said louder now. "That tone. That's exactly what I mean." From across the street, a garage door opened. A neighbor stepped out and pretended to check his trash bins while watching us. Paige lowered her voice again, smooth. "I already booked you a room," she said like she was doing me a favor. "There's a motel off Glenwood. Here." She held up her phone and read it instead of showing it, like she didn't want me to take a screenshot. "Reservation is under your name. You can pick up the kids' things tomorrow when I'm ready." Tomorrow, when I'm ready. Like access to my own children's backpacks was a privilege. I stared at her. "You're kicking me out." "I'm protecting my peace," she said, "and theirs." Lily's face crumpled. She didn't cry loud. She just swallowed hard, eyes glassy, like she'd learned the safest way to hurt. My phone buzzed again, this time an email notification from work. Subject: Schedule update. Immediate. My stomach dropped before I even opened it because schedule update never meant anything good. I clicked. "Ethan," it read, "HR needs you to remain off-site until we review a concern raised today. We'll contact you with next steps." My badge had stopped working. Now my whole life was turning into next steps. Paige watched my face as I read it. A tiny, satisfied flicker moved behind her eyes and she covered it fast. "You should go," she said gently, like she cared. "Before you make this worse." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab my spare key off the porch rail and throw it into the street. I wanted to rip the curtain open and drag my own life back into place. Instead, I did the only thing I could do without giving them the reaction they were waiting for. I opened my Notes app and typed with my thumbs shaking. Lock changed, kids present, Trevor inside, Paige refused entry, offered motel, HR email received. Max wiped his nose with his sleeve and whispered, "Dad, are we leaving?" I swallowed the burn in my throat. "We're going to sleep somewhere else tonight," I said. "Just for tonight." Paige took a step closer to the car window. Her voice turned soft, almost intimate, the way it used to be when she wanted me to agree with her. "Don't text me a lot," she said. "It stresses me out." "Paige," I said, and I hated how calm I sounded because it made this feel like a normal disagreement. "Are you with him?" She didn't answer the question. She looked past me, at Lily's face, and then she did something that made my skin go cold. She smiled, small, controlled, and she said, "I'm doing what I need to do." Then she reached into her pocket and pressed something with her thumb. From inside the house, a faint chirp answered back, like a device acknowledging a command. Trevor's eyes flicked to the corner of the porch ceiling. Mine followed. A tiny black camera, new, angled straight at the driveway, its little light blinking like it had been recording the whole time. Paige turned and walked back up the steps without looking at me again. Trevor stayed in the doorway, coffee in hand, watching me the way you watch a man backing away from a ledge. I pulled out of the driveway slowly, kids silent behind me, and as we turned the corner I saw Trevor step fully outside and close the door behind him, careful, deliberate, like he'd done it 100 times. My phone buzzed one more time, a voicemail notification from an unknown number. No transcription, just a timestamp. 32 seconds. I didn't play it while the kids were in the car, but I knew, deep down, that whatever was on that recording wasn't meant to help me. It was meant to shape me. The motel off Glenwood looked like every place you end up when life swerves. Faded brick, a buzzing soda machine, and a lobby that smelled like bleach trying to cover up old smoke. I kept telling myself it was temporary. 1 night. 2 at most. Just enough time for Paige to cool off and remember we were a family. But the way Lily walked, small steps, shoulders tight, made it feel like we'd been exiled. Max asked if we were on vacation. I said, "Sort of," and hated myself for lying. Lily didn't ask anything. She just stared at the carpet pattern like she was counting shapes to stay calm. I paid with my card at the front desk and the clerk slid the key card across like she'd done this 1,000 times. She looked at the kids, then at me, then at my hands, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. I couldn't blame her. I looked like a man who'd been unplugged from his own life. Our room was on the 2nd floor. As we walked up, I felt that quiet horror again, like I was doing something illegal simply by existing, like the world had been briefed on me and I missed the meeting. Inside the room, Lily went straight to the far bed and sat with her knees tucked up, backpack still on. Max bounced once on the mattress, then froze like he remembered he wasn't supposed to make noise. "Shoes off," I said gently, because I needed rules. Rules meant normal. They kicked off their shoes. I turned the TV on low, not to watch, just to fill the air so silence wouldn't swallow us. Lily kept pressing her fingers to her ears whenever the commercials got loud. I called Paige once more. Voicemail. I didn't want to leave messages the way she'd asked not to, but I also didn't want there to be nothing. No proof that I tried, no trail of my calm. So I sent one text. Short, clean. Me. Kids are safe. We're at a motel nearby. Please tell me when they can get clothes and their school stuff. No answer. I watched the screen like it could change if I stared harder. Max asked for chicken nuggets, so I drove us through a drive-thru and ate in the car because it felt safer than a restaurant full of eyes. The kids were quiet in the back seat. That quiet wasn't peace, it was fear behaving. When we got back to the room, Max fell asleep fast, mouth open, clutching the little toy he'd grabbed from the car. Lily stayed awake, sitting upright like she was on duty. "Do you want to call Mom?" I asked. Lily's eyes got shiny, but she didn't cry. "She said we make it worse," she whispered. "What do you mean?" Lily shrugged, tiny. "When we talk. When we ask questions. She said it makes you loud." The word hit me like a slap. loud, like my voice was a weapon, like my concern was violence. "I'm not going to be loud," I promised. "Not to you, never to you." Lily stared at me for a long second, then asked, "Can we just be quiet tonight?" I nodded and pulled a thin motel blanket up to her shoulders. I sat in the chair by the window and watched the parking lot lights flicker. Cars came and went. Someone laughed outside. Somewhere a door slammed. Normal sounds. A normal world. Not my world. When both kids were asleep, I finally played the voicemail from the unknown number. I turned the volume down low and held the phone close to my ear like it was contraband. A man's voice, calm and deliberate, like he was reading something he'd practiced. "Hi, this is Trevor. I'm calling because I just want you to know you're doing the right thing. He's been escalating. If he shows up again, don't engage. I can be there. I'll handle it. Just stay inside." My blood went cold, not because the message was dramatic, because it was casual, because it assumed Paige and Trevor were a we, because it framed me as a threat like it was already agreed upon. I replayed it once, then again, and each time it sounded more confident, like he'd said those words before in person, and now he was leaving them as a record. I took a screenshot of the voicemail screen, timestamp, duration, the number, then I copied my own notes again, adding a new line with trembling fingers. Trevor, voicemail. "You're doing the right thing. He's escalating. I'll handle it." A moment later, my phone buzzed with a message from a coworker, Manny, the only guy at work who never played politics. Manny. "Bro, HR walked security down to shipping. They're saying, workplace safety concern. Someone told them you were unstable. You didn't hear it from me. Unstable. Escalating. Safety concern. The words were showing up in different places like they were traveling together." I stared at the motel ceiling, listening to the kids breathing, and I felt something I don't have a good name for. Not anger, not panic. It was the sensation of being turned into a story by people who didn't need facts, just labels. The next morning, I drove the kids to school like nothing had happened. I packed Lily's lunch from whatever we could buy at the motel vending machine and the closest grocery store. I tried to make jokes. Max gave me a weak smile. Lily didn't. At the school drop-off, Lily stood outside the car for a second and looked at me like she wanted to say something dangerous. "Dad," she said quietly, "Aunt Kara told Mom you'd try to steal us back." My chest tightened. "Who told you that?" Lily pointed down at her own shoes. "Mom said it like it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke." I watched her walk inside with her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Max followed, smaller than he looked yesterday. As soon as I pulled away, my phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered without thinking. "Hello?" A woman's voice, sharp and cheerful in the worst way. "Ethan, it's Kara." Paige's sister. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "How did you get this number?" She laughed like I was being silly. "Paige told me to handle communication for now. She needs peace." Peace. Their favorite weapon. "I want to talk to my wife," I said. "You can't," Kara replied too fast. "Not while you're like this. Also, you need to stop involving the kids in adult drama." "I didn't involve them," I said, keeping my voice even. "You people change the locks on them." There was a pause, then a soft, dangerous sweetness. "Oh, you're still doing that thing where you twist it. Listen, we're coming by later to pick up some things. Don't follow. Don't make a scene." "We?" I asked. Kara didn't answer directly. "And Ethan, just so you know, Trevor is a good man. He's been very supportive." She said it like she wanted it to cut, like she enjoyed that it would. My hands went numb. I hung up without saying goodbye and sat at a red light while my brain tried to keep up. Trevor wasn't just a neighbor. He was inside their circle now. Maybe he'd always been there. I drove to the house anyway, not to barge in, not to fight, just to see if my kids' clothes were still in their rooms, if our life still existed behind those curtains. I parked down the street like a criminal. I hated that I did it. I hated that it felt necessary. The porch camera was still there, angled at the driveway. The curtains were closed again, and on the front steps sat 2 suitcases. Big ones, upright like someone was checking out. Then the front door opened. Kara stepped out first, center frame, pulling one suitcase behind her. Another older woman followed, Paige's mom, carrying a tote bag like she was running an errand. Paige appeared on the right side of the doorway, sunglasses on, face unreadable, holding her phone with both hands like it was a shield. Trevor came out last. He didn't carry anything. He just stood there with his arm lightly touching Paige's back. So small you could miss it. So familiar you couldn't. It was another frozen, thumbnail-ready moment. Me, hidden in my car on the left side of the street, my keys clenched in my fist, 3 women clustered on the porch around 2 suitcases, and Paige on the right holding a phone, expression cold behind her glasses. Trevor in the center, relaxed. Props everywhere, suitcases, phone glow, the porch camera, and a child's small pink jacket hanging over the porch rail like it had been left behind on purpose. My stomach turned when I recognized the jacket. Lily's jacket. They were taking things. But not that. Not the kids' things. Not the kids. Kara's head turned slowly like she could feel my eyes. She scanned the street. For a second, I thought she spotted me. Then my phone buzzed with a new notification. Not a text, an email. From Wake County Child Welfare Intake. Subject: Notice of report. Action required. My vision narrowed so hard the edges went dark. I stared at the subject line, my thumb hovering over the screen, and in the distance I watched Paige step off the porch with her mom and sister, 2 suitcases rolling behind them, while Trevor stayed at the door like a guard. I didn't open the email yet, because I suddenly understood the shape of the trap. Lock change, camera, HR, unstable, escalating, and now a report. And I was sitting in a car with my daughter's jacket left behind like evidence. My thumb finally pressed the email. I opened the email with my thumb like I was opening a door I couldn't close again. It wasn't a long message. It didn't need to be. It was written in that clean, bureaucratic tone that makes you feel guilty just for breathing. Notice of report, it said. Action required. It listed my name, the kids' names, and a sentence that turned my stomach inside out. Allegations received regarding safety concerns and potential domestic conflict. No details, no proof, just words that could ruin a person with a signature. For a full minute I sat there in my car down the street from my own house, watching Paige's mom and Kara load the suitcases into a trunk like they were leaving a hotel. Trevor stood on the porch, arms loose at his sides, perfectly calm. Paige stayed near him with those sunglasses on, phone held in both hands like a weapon that didn't need bullets. And Lily's pink jacket still hung over the rail like a baited hook. I backed out quietly and drove away because I knew what they wanted. A scene. A neighbor video. A clip that starts halfway through, where I'm the only one shouting. I didn't give it to them. At the motel parking lot, I sat with the engine off and read the email again, slower. It asked me to make contact within 24 hours. It gave a general office name, no direct person, and a line that felt like a threat dressed as helpfulness. Failure to respond may result in further action. My hands shook, but my face went still. That was the first thing I learned about fear. You can't let it change your posture in front of witnesses. And suddenly, everyone felt like a witness. I called the number and kept my voice flat. A woman answered. Professional, tired. She introduced herself as a caseworker, Ms. Bennett, and asked me to verify my identity. I did. Then she said something I can still hear in my sleep. We just need to talk and make sure the kids are okay. Like they weren't sitting 10 feet from me alive and safe while their mother locked them out of their own beds. I asked what the report said. She didn't tell me everything, but she gave enough that my vision narrowed. There were concerns about escalation. There was a mention of intimidation. There was a phrase that felt like it came straight from Trevor's voicemail. Unsafe behavior. And then, casually, like she was reading a grocery list, she said, "There was also an allegation that you threatened to take the children without permission." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so upside down I didn't know what else to do with it. "I didn't take them," I said. "Their mother locked us out. I left because the kids needed a bed and a bathroom." There was a pause as she typed. "Okay," she said. The way people say okay when they're filing you into a category. She wanted to meet. Today. She offered to come to the motel or for me to come to the office. I chose the office because I didn't want a stranger with authority walking into the room where my kids were trying to feel safe. I didn't want Max to see a badge and think he'd done something wrong by loving his dad. "Bring any documentation you have," she said. Documentation. Like this was court and I was already on defense. After I hung up, I stared at my notes app until the words swam. Lock change, Trevor inside, HR email, voicemail, now child welfare. It was all the same shape. I printed what I could at the motel lobby, screenshots, the HR email, the voicemail screen. The printer made that grinding sound like it was chewing my life. The clerk watched me from behind the counter with the same half-smile as yesterday, and I realized how quickly a man becomes a story. When I picked the kids up from school, the front office called Lily's name over the speaker, and the sound made her flinch. She came out slower than usual, backpack hugged tight to her chest like armor. Max ran to me and stopped himself at the last second, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to. "Hey," I said, forcing warmth into my voice. "How was your day?" Max shrugged. Lily didn't answer. She kept her eyes on the floor until we were outside. In the parking lot, Lily finally spoke. "Mom's sister came today." My stomach dropped. "Kara." Lily nodded once. She talked to the front desk lady. She said Mom's handling paperwork. "Did she talk to you?" Lily hesitated, then whispered, "She said, we shouldn't tell you things because it makes you act crazy." I felt heat rise behind my eyes, sharp and humiliating. I crouched down so I was level with her. "Listen to me," I said, soft. "You're allowed to tell me anything. You're not responsible for how adults behave, okay?" Lily's mouth trembled. She looked past me at the school building like it was an enemy. "I just want it quiet," she said, and the way she said quiet wasn't about sound. It was about peace, about safety, about begging the world to stop pulling her in half. On the drive back to the motel, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't have saved, but I knew who it was the second I saw the punctuation. "Kara. You need to stop stalking the house. We have cameras. Don't contact Paige. Communicate through me." My throat tightened. Stalking. Cameras. The words were chosen carefully like they were building blocks for a report. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot and saved it with the others. When we got back, Max asked if Mom was coming to tuck them in. I said, "Not tonight," and his face fell like he'd been holding hope in his hands and someone slapped it away. I fed them microwaved oatmeal and apples from a grocery bag. Lily took 3 bites and stopped. Max ate everything like he was trying to fill a hole that wasn't hunger. That evening, I drove downtown to the county office. The building was plain, bright, quiet in the way government buildings are, quiet like they've heard every kind of pain and don't react anymore. Ms. Bennett met me in a small room with a table and 2 chairs. She had kind eyes, but her face was trained to stay neutral. I put my stack of papers down like I was laying out pieces of my innocence. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm here to make sure my kids don't get used like props." She wrote that down. I watched her pen move and felt the silent horror of not knowing which words mattered and which ones would be ignored. She asked me about my job. I told her. She asked why I was staying at a motel. I told her. She asked if I had ever been violent. I said no. She asked if Paige had ever said she was afraid of me. I said Paige had never said that until this week, until Trevor started helping, until Kara showed up, until the locks changed. Miss Bennett didn't react to the name Trevor. She didn't react to Kara. She just nodded as if those were background details. Then she slid a single sheet across the table. It wasn't a full report, just a summary of concerns. No signatures. No proof. But the wording made my skin crawl because it sounded like it came from someone who'd practiced. Subject displays controlling behaviors, it said. Subject becomes verbally aggressive. Mother reports feeling unsafe. Neighbor corroborates. Children appear distressed after interactions. Neighbor corroborates. Trevor. I swallowed hard and kept my hands flat on the table where she could see them, because suddenly my hands felt like evidence. "I have a voicemail from him," I said. "He said I'm escalating and that he'll handle it. That sounds like coordination." Ms. Bennett accepted the screenshot without emotion. "Okay," she said again, the same careful okay. Then she asked the question that made my stomach flip. "Do you have somewhere stable you can stay long-term with the children?" I thought of my house, my own bed, Lily's pink jacket on the rail, the camera watching the driveway. I thought of Paige telling me it wasn't my house, and I realized she didn't just lock me out. She locked me out of stability. "I'm working on it," I said. Ms. Bennett nodded like she'd expected that answer. "For now, we need to do a home visit." "My home?" I asked before I could stop myself. She looked up. "Where the children are staying." "The motel." I pictured Max seeing her clipboard, Lily pressing fingers to her ears, the clerk watching, the hallway smelling like bleach. I forced my voice back into calm. "Okay," I said. "When?" "Tomorrow," she replied. "Late afternoon." I drove back to the motel with the paperwork on the passenger seat like a bomb I couldn't drop anywhere. The kids were asleep when I walked in. Lily had kicked her blanket off and curled around her backpack like it was a pillow. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her small face in the dim light. How do you explain to a child that adults can weaponize concern? How do you promise safety when someone else is writing your story for you? My phone buzzed again. This one wasn't Kara. It was HR. Subject: Meeting request. Attendance required. They wanted me in the morning, in person, to discuss workplace safety. Workplace safety, child safety, every sentence pointing at me like a finger. I lay down fully dressed and didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Paige on the porch, smiling with hard eyes, and Trevor inside the doorway like the house belonged to him. The next morning, I dropped the kids at school and went to the HR meeting in a building that felt too clean for what it was about to do to me. A security guard walked me to a small conference room like I was a risk. HR sat across from me with a folder. My manager wouldn't look me in the eye. "We received a report," the HR woman said, voice rehearsed, "that you made threatening statements and behaved erratically." "What report?" I asked. She slid a paper across the table. It was a screenshot of an email, supposedly sent from my personal address to a coworker, full of angry language I didn't write. It included a line about making them pay. It was signed with my first name. My mouth went dry because I recognized the phrasing. Not my words, but words I'd seen in Trevor's voicemail. Handle it. Escalating. Make it worse. Someone had built an imitation of me using scraps they'd fed the world. "That's not mine," I said, and my voice stayed steady out of pure survival. "I didn't send that." HR's eyes didn't change. "Do you have proof you didn't? Proof of a negative. Proof you didn't become the monster someone printed." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. HR kept talking about leave pending investigation, about employee assistance, about returning company property. Every sentence felt like another lock clicking into place. When they finally let me out, I sat in my car and saw the missed call, the school, then a voicemail notification, then a text from an unknown number that made my blood turn to ice. Page. "Caseworker is coming. Don't coach the kids." Paige hadn't texted me directly in days, which meant she knew. She knew Ms. Bennett's schedule. She knew where we were staying. She knew what I was about to face. I called the school back with my heart in my throat. The secretary answered, too calm. "Mr. Walker," she said, "can you come in? It's about Lily." I drove like I was chasing my own oxygen. When I walked into the front office, Lily was sitting in a chair, backpack on her lap, face pale. A counselor stood beside her, and on the other side of the room, right where she'd want to be, like a queen in her corner, Kara was already there. Kara looked at me and smiled. Not friendly, not polite. A smile that said, "We got here first." The school office felt too bright for a moment that dark. Everything was clean. Laminated posters about kindness, a bowl of peppermint candy, a little table with coloring pages. Like the building was trying to convince everyone that nothing truly bad could happen here. Lily sat in the chair with her backpack hugged to her chest, knees pulled tight together. Her eyes were fixed on the floor like it was safer than looking at faces. The counselor stood beside her with a clipboard and a soft expression that didn't fool me. Kara sat across the room in a plastic chair, legs crossed, phone in hand, calm like she'd booked the appointment. When she saw me, she didn't stand. She just smiled, small and sharp, and lifted her chin like she owned the air in that room. "Ethan," the counselor said carefully like she was stepping around glass. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "What happened?" I asked, keeping my voice low. I looked at Lily. "Sweetheart?" Lily's throat moved like she swallowed something painful. She didn't answer. Her fingers squeezed the backpack strap so hard her knuckles went pale. Kara sighed dramatically like she was the exhausted adult in charge. "We just want what's best for the kids," she said. "I told Paige I'd handle it. She's overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. Their favorite word for a woman who had time to change locks, install cameras, coordinate HR, and file a report. The counselor led me a few steps away, still within Lily's line of sight. Kara watched us with that same calm, Her phone angled slightly upward like she was ready to capture whatever she needed. "This morning," the counselor said, "Lily had a panic response in class. She put her hands over her ears and started crying. She asked to come here." My chest tightened. "Did someone yell at her?" "No," the counselor said quickly. "No. It wasn't about volume. She said—" The counselor hesitated. "She said the word quiet a few times, and she said she felt like she's in trouble when she talks." That sentence hit me in a slow wave. Not because it was new, because it was proof my daughter had been living inside someone else's rules. I crouched beside Lily's chair so my face was level with hers. "Hey," I said gently. "You're not in trouble. Not with me, okay?" Lily blinked fast, holding back tears like she'd learned they were dangerous. She looked past me for a second, toward Kara, then back down. Kara's voice floated over, sweet as poison. "Lily, honey, you can tell the counselor what you told me. Remember? Be honest." My stomach clenched. The words were too coached to be accidental. Lily's lips parted, then closed again. Her voice came out in a whisper I barely caught. "I don't want to pick." "I'm not asking you to pick," I said quickly. "I'm asking you to feel safe." Kara made a little sound of sympathy, like she was watching a sad commercial. "That's exactly the problem," she said. "He turns everything into a dramatic performance." I stood slowly, keeping my hands visible, my posture calm, because I could feel the trap tightening. This wasn't a family conversation. This was an audience. The counselor cleared her throat. "We also received an email about authorized pickup." My skin went cold. "From who?" The counselor glanced at her computer, then back at me. "From Paige. She listed Kara as an approved pickup, effective immediately. She asked that Lily and Max be released to Kara today." Kara's smile widened just a fraction. "And you didn't call me?" I asked, careful. "I'm their father. I'm the one who dropped them off." "We did call," the counselor said softly. "The number on file for you went to voicemail." I pulled out my phone, heart pounding, and checked. No missed call. No voicemail from the school. Nothing. Then I looked at my settings, something I'd never had to look at before this week, and I felt that quiet horror wash over me again. My school notifications were turned off. Not just silenced, disabled, like someone had reached into my life while I wasn't looking and switched off the alarms. I didn't say it out loud. I took a screenshot of the settings screen instead, hands steady by sheer force. "I'm here now," I said. "Lily goes with me." Kara stood up finally, smooth and certain. "No," she said. "Paige doesn't want him taking them anywhere unsupervised. She's terrified." The counselor's face tightened. "Kara, we can't discuss custody decisions without documentation." Kara lifted her phone and tapped twice, then held it up. "I have documentation," she said too quickly. "Paige sent me a screenshot." She angled the screen toward the counselor, not toward me. I saw it only in flashes, an email header, a block of text, a word like unsafe, the kind of screenshot that could be cropped, edited, twisted. The counselor's eyes flicked over it and then away like she didn't trust it, but couldn't ignore it either. It was another frozen moment burned into me. Lily in the chair hugging her backpack, the counselor half-turned with a clipboard and a stack of tissues, Kara standing on the right with her phone glowing, and me on the left with my own phone in my hand like I was trying to defend my children with screenshots. On the wall behind us, a poster read, "Be kind," in bright letters, and it felt like a joke. "Okay," the counselor said carefully. "I'm going to call the district office, and we should also contact the caseworker assigned. My pulse spiked. Ms. Bennett? I asked. The counselor nodded. Yes. Kara's eyes flicked to mine, and for the first time her calm looked excited, like she'd been waiting for the caseworker's name to be spoken out loud. While the counselor stepped out, Kara leaned closer, lowering her voice so Lily wouldn't hear. You should stop pushing, she whispered. It makes you look guilty. You're using my kids like evidence, I said, still quiet. Kara shrugged. We're protecting them. I looked at Lily and saw her shoulders shaking. Silent crying. No sound. The kind that happens when you've learned that noise has consequences. I walked over, crouched again, and touched her backpack strap lightly. Hey, I whispered, do you want to go with Dad right now? Just to the car. We can sit quietly. Lily's eyes met mine for half a second. Then she whispered the sentence that broke something in me. I just want it quiet, she said. I don't care where. The counselor returned 10 minutes later with a tight face. Ms. Bennett is on her way here, she said. She asked everyone to stay put. Kara sat back down like a queen resuming her throne. Lily pressed her palms to her ears even though no one was yelling. When Ms. Bennett arrived, she didn't come alone. A uniformed school resource officer walked with her. Not threatening, not aggressive, just present. The presence was enough to make the room feel like a courtroom. Ms. Bennett greeted me politely and greeted Kara politely. Then she turned her attention to Lily with the warmest voice she'd used so far. Hi, Lily, she said. I'm Ms. Bennett. I'm here to make sure you're safe. Okay? Lily nodded without looking up. Ms. Bennett asked me to step outside the office with her for a minute. Kara watched us go with the patience of someone who believed time was on her side. In the hallway, Ms. Bennett kept her voice low. Ethan, she said, I need you to understand how this works. I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm here to assess risk. I get it, I said, but you're being handed a script. Ms. Bennett's expression didn't change. I listened to the voicemail screenshot you provided. I also received a statement from Paige. She says she changed the locks because she felt unsafe. She says Trevor witnessed escalating behavior. That's coordinated, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. They're using the same words everywhere. HR, child welfare, school, it's all the same language. Ms. Bennett studied me for a long moment. Then she said something that made my blood drain out of my face. There's also a report that you attempted to enter the home forcibly while the children were present. I stared at her. What? I tried my key. I knocked. I left. The report says you rattled the door and threatened to break in, she said, carefully neutral. I heard Kara's voice in my head. We have cameras. The porch camera. They had video. Not of what happened, of what it could be edited to look like. Ms. Bennett continued, Given the conflicting accounts, I need to speak to both children privately. My throat tightened. Without me? Yes, she said gently. It's standard. I looked back through the office window. Lily was sitting like a statue. Max wasn't even here yet. He'd be in aftercare for another hour. You can't let Kara talk to them, I said quickly. She's coaching. I will handle the interview, Ms. Bennett said, tone firmer now. You need to remain calm. Remain calm. Another phrase that sounded like a warning. We walked back into the office and Ms. Bennett knelt in front of Lily. Kara leaned forward slightly, ready to inject her version, but Ms. Bennett held up a hand. Polite. Final. Kara, please wait outside, Ms. Bennett said. Kara blinked, offended. Paige authorized me. Outside, Miss Bennet repeated. Kara stood slowly, eyes sharp, then looked at Lily with a practiced softness. "It's okay, honey," she said. "Just tell the truth." The door closed behind Kara with a soft click that sounded too loud. Miss Bennet spoke to Lily in a low voice I couldn't hear. Lily nodded once, then twice. Then she put her hands over her ears and shook her head. The counselor moved a tissue box closer. Lily didn't take it. Miss Bennet looked up at me. "Ethan," she said, "I'm going to ask you to step into the hall. Now." I took one step, then another. Each step felt like I was walking away from my child in the middle of a storm. In the hallway, the school resource officer stood a few feet away, giving space but not leaving. After a minute that felt like an hour, Miss Bennet opened the office door and called me back in. Lily's face was red from holding back tears. Her backpack was on the floor now, unzipped slightly, like she'd been shaking too much to keep it closed. Miss Bennet's voice was soft when she spoke, and that softness scared me more than hardness. "Lily said she heard Mom tell Trevor she would take the kids and disappear," Miss Bennet said. My stomach flipped. "What?" Lily flinched like she hadn't meant for that to leave her mouth. Miss Bennet continued carefully. "She also said she heard Trevor say, 'Your husband won't have a job by Friday.'" The room went dead silent. Even Kara's weapon words didn't fit into the air anymore because this wasn't about me escalating. This was about intent, planning, control. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. I looked at Lily, trying to keep my face calm so she wouldn't regret speaking. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "when did you hear that?" Lily's voice came out like a cracked thread. "At night," she said, "when Mom thought we were asleep." Miss Bennet's eyes were on me. "Ethan," she said slowly, "I need to know something right now. Do you have any reason to believe Paige is planning to leave the state with the children?" Before I could answer, the office door swung open. Paige stepped in, sunglasses off now, eyes bright and cold, and Trevor followed one step behind her, calm as ever, like he belonged in every room that mattered. Paige stood on the right side of the doorway with her phone raised, already recording, and Trevor looked straight at me and smiled like he knew exactly what Lily had just said. "Hey," he said softly, "let's not make this messy." Paige walked in like she'd rehearsed it, chin up, eyes bright, phone raised. Trevor followed one step behind her, hands relaxed, posture open, like he was the reasonable one here to keep things calm. The school resource officer shifted his weight, not aggressive, just suddenly more real. Miss Bennet didn't look surprised. That scared me the most. Paige angled her camera so I was framed on the left side of her screen and Lily on the right, red-eyed and shaking. She didn't even ask if Lily was okay. She just started recording. "Hey," Trevor said softly, smiling at me like we were neighbors talking about trash day. "Let's not make this messy." Lily flinched at his voice and pressed her palms to her ears again. I felt something hot rise in my throat, but I kept my face blank because I could feel the trap waiting for one wrong move. Miss Bennet stepped forward. "Paige," she said, calm but firm, "you need to stop recording inside the school office." Paige's lips tightened. "I'm documenting," she said, "for my safety." The counselor's hands hovered near the tissue box like she didn't know what to do with them. The officer spoke gently. "Ma'am, please put the phone down." Paige didn't. She just turned the phone slightly, aiming it more directly at me. "Tell them," she said to Lily, voice too sweet. "Tell them how scared you get when Dad gets loud." Lily's eyes snapped up, shocked, like Paige had just slapped her with words. The quiet in the room turned sharp and dangerous. "I didn't say that," Lily whispered. Paige's smile flickered. "Lily." "I didn't," Lily repeated, louder this time. Her hands dropped from her ears and her fingers curled into fists. "You told him I would." Something in Miss Bennet's expression changed. Not anger, not sympathy. More like a door quietly locking. Trevor tried to soften it with a chuckle. "Kids get confused," he said. "It's a stressful environment." Lily's face twisted. "Stop," she said, and her voice cracked. "Stop acting like you're—" Paige stepped forward fast. "Lily, that's enough." The officer took a half step between them, still polite, still calm. "Ma'am," he said again, firmer. Paige finally lowered the phone, but she didn't put it away. She held it against her chest like she was restraining herself from using it. Miss Bennet nodded once, then looked at Trevor. "And you are?" Trevor didn't hesitate. "Trevor, I'm the neighbor. I've been helping Paige because she's afraid." "How long have you been helping?" Miss Bennet asked. Trevor smiled like it was a normal question. "A while." Paige's jaw tightened. The word "a while" landed heavy in the room. Miss Bennet turned to Paige. "I'm going to speak with you privately," she said, "and then with Trevor, and then with Ethan. Kara will remain outside. The children remain with staff." Paige's eyes sharpened. "No, the kids come with me." Miss Bennet didn't blink. "Not right now." Paige looked at me as if I'd secretly won something. I hadn't. I was just standing in the blast zone. While Miss Bennet spoke to Paige in the hall, Trevor leaned his shoulder casually against the office wall like he belonged there. He kept glancing at Lily like he wanted her to look at him. She wouldn't. Max arrived from aftercare right then, guided in by a staff member. The second he saw Paige, he lit up for half a second, then froze when he saw the tension in the officer. He didn't run to her. He moved toward Lily instead, and Lily wrapped an arm around him without even looking. That image still burns in my head like a photograph. Lily, sitting rigid with her backpack open at her feet, Max pressed into her side, Paige on the right side of the doorway holding her phone tight, Trevor in the center pretending to be calm, and me on the left with my keys digging into my palm so hard it hurt. The counselor's tissue box sat between us like a prop nobody wanted to touch. Miss Bennet came back in and asked Trevor to step into the hallway. He went, still smiling, and that smile finally looked like what it was: confidence. Paige watched him go with a look she probably thought nobody would notice. It wasn't gratitude. It was possession. When it was my turn in the hallway, Miss Bennet's voice was quieter than before. "Lily's statements matter," she said. She used specific language. She referenced planning. That shifts risk. "Risk of what?" I asked, though my chest already knew. Miss Bennet held my gaze. "Risk that Paige is attempting to manipulate systems. Risk that the children are being pressured." She hesitated, then said, "I need you to be honest with me. Do you believe Paige and Trevor have a relationship beyond neighbor?" The question felt like stepping off a cliff. I didn't want it to be true because truth came with consequences. But every piece of this week had been pointing to the same ugly center. "I believe he's been inside my life," I said. "I believe he helped disable my notifications. I believe he's been feeding her language to use against me. And yes, I believe there's something going on." Miss Bennet nodded once, like she'd expected that answer. "Here's what happens next," she said. "I'm implementing a temporary safety plan. The children remain with you tonight. Paige will have supervised contact arranged through the office. Do not engage with Kara. Do not confront Trevor. Keep communication written. Paige heard part of that and snapped. This is unbelievable, she hissed. He's poisoning them. Ms. Bennett's voice stayed level. Paige, you arrived here with your phone raised. You attempted to prompt Lily into a statement, and Lily reported hearing you discuss leaving the state. Those are concerns. Paige's face went stiff, like a mask locking back into place. She turned to me, eyes hard and shiny. You think you won, she whispered. I didn't answer, because winning wasn't having my kids clinging to each other in a school office while adults argued over them like property. That evening, Ms. Bennett met me at the motel for the visit. She watched the kids eat microwaved pasta quietly. She watched Lily flinch when a door slammed down the hall. She watched Max stare at the TV without seeing it. When Ms. Bennett left, Lily walked up to me and pressed her forehead into my stomach. No words, just wait. I put my hand on the back of her head and felt my own breathing finally slow. My phone buzzed at 11:17 p.m. A message request from an unknown account. No name, just a blank circle avatar. It was a screenshot. Not of me, of Paige. Paige in my kitchen, hair down, laughing, head tilted toward someone off frame. The next image showed the same kitchen, same lighting. But this time you could see the reflection in the microwave door. Trevor standing close behind her, his hand on her waist.